You're now watching a clip from the Inspired by show. You can watch the full episode on our YouTube channel or listen on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to head over there, leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it, and follow the show. Benefits that a lot of women have, we're not male slating right now for anyone who's watching or listening. We're not anti-men. I totally agree with you, Julia. I think actually a lot of men can benefit from reading your book and learn about the women.
I really wrote the book for men to read just as much as women.
Yeah. It's written that way. It does come across like you're not slating, you're not, I know you interviewed someone as well and you've got lots of different stories to share. It does come across as if it's written for both to understand it from both perspectives.
Yeah. And look, my audience on CNBC is largely male. We have more male audience on watching CNBC than we do a female audience. And for me, what I think is really important is to share these other stories. And the real argument of the book for men to read it is that there is a missed financial opportunity. If female founders tend to outperform, there's a lot of data showing female CEOs yield higher returns in the years after they're appointed. There's so many different financial arguments for investing in diversity, and yet it doesn't happen very often. So my argument is understand the numbers, see the examples, and use all of this information to strip away the bias that we all have, and to strip away from this sort of this impulse to pattern match, to look for the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next Jamie Dimon, or these, just to perpetuate these cycles, and use that as an opportunity to unlock more financial value. And it's effectively, I was talking to some private equity investors who were men who had read my book. They're like, wow, it seems like a real arbitrage opportunity to focus on these untapped opportunities in investing in women. I said, I think that's a good way to put it. So this idea that we can all unlock value, not only by investing more in diversity, but also in leading the way that women tend to lead. And I was lucky to get to write my book over the pandemic, in that I had great access to women. Everyone was available. But also what I saw over the pandemic is that the skills and strategies women tend to deploy were essential during the pandemic, and I think are more valuable now than ever. And I truly believe that the pandemic shed light on the importance of the particular skills and strategies women tend to bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk a lot about those strategies in your book. One of the ones that kept coming up for me was vulnerability. I saw it in almost all the stories you shared. I know there was various chapters on that. Yeah. Where do you think vulnerability plays a part in female leadership, and how can men learn that from us women?
Well, the key thing about vulnerability is it needs to be strategically deployed. If you're going to be vulnerable and say, here's what I don't know, here's where I don't have any expertise, you need to say where you do have strength. So I think there's this message, especially when I was coming of age in the business world, where people were supposed to portray strength at all times. Total confidence, we know the path, we're good to go. And the reality is if you pretend you always know what you're doing, you're going to miss out on opportunity and feedback in the areas where you really need it. So a number of women I talked to said that they strategically deployed vulnerability to invite collaboration. So if, Katrina Lake was founding Stitch Fix, she was able to hire people who she should not, who would have had no business leaving Netflix or Walmart to join a little startup. And people have said to me, Katrina Lake is a talent magnet. And I kept on saying, first of all, what does that even mean to be a talent magnet? Doesn't everyone want to be a talent magnet? Sign me up, But why would she, what is it? What is the special skill that it takes to be a talent magnet? And I actually spent quite a bit of time looking for academic research on what makes someone a talent magnet. The research is not out there. If anyone can find it, I look forward to reading it. But to me, I interviewed her investors. I talked to her multiple times. I was like, how are you able to get these people to come work for you? And ultimately, what it really came down to is the fact that she said she would call up these people who are top of their fields and say, I do not have expertise in data science. Leave Netflix and come work for me, and I will let you take the lead in this. Here's a big problem and a big opportunity. I'm not going to micromanage you because I respect your expertise in this area. Her own vulnerability, admitting what she did not know and admitting the big hole in her company, made those people feel confident that they would have a growth opportunity. And there's lots of research about how it's important for people to feel a sense of autonomy. And I think that that's what vulnerability can do when you're inviting collaboration. I think also, there's something about the pandemic, seeing that nobody has all the answers, nobody knows everything. The more honest you are, the more I think you earn respect, because people are going to believe you're good at the thing you say you're good at if you admit you're not good at the thing you don't know anything about. So I think that honesty builds trust. And I think there's a lot of research about how vulnerability invites people to trust you. Nobody's perfect. And if you pretend you are, people are going to smell it from a mile away.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes it's about vulnerability, being vulnerable, that you're not comfortable being vulnerable. Because sometimes I think people struggle with, like you say, there's so many patterns we've learned and behaviors we've learned, which is I must know everything, especially as a founder or a business owner. I must do everything right. I must be the expert in this. If I don't know the answer, people will judge me, especially when a lot of women already feel like they're being judged in the minority.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, it's interesting talking to female CEOs about the importance of vulnerability. One woman said to me, I overdid it once. I was overly vulnerable and it ended up backfiring because that person thought that they weren't going to have to collaborate with me. It was a man she'd hired. She used her vulnerability to hire someone very senior. And she said it backfired because I didn't establish with him what my areas of strength were. So I think anything where you're performing it, whether you're performing competence or you're performing vulnerability, it's going to fail. I think it all comes down to authenticity. And the truth is, of course, everyone has their weaknesses. I think the vulnerability is just admitting who you are and what you have to learn. That's, I think, why it's like it all has to be authentic.